Deputy Moynihan.
Thank you, Cahir. Look, I want to ask the Minister for Further and Higher Education the status of the Strategic Action Plan for Equality, Participation and Success in Higher Education on the period 2022-2026, and if he will advise the House of his plans.
Minister. Thanks very much, Caoirleach, and thank you very much to Deputy Moynihan for raising this issue, which I know is an issue that he has a particular interest in as well. Development of the new Strategic Action Plan for Equity, Participation and Success in Higher Education, or what I call the National Access and Inclusion Plan, is at a very final stage. The plan is being developed collaboratively between our own department and the Higher Education Authority. The plan has involved very significant consultation, as is right and proper, with interested stakeholders, including obviously the institutions, but students, individuals and representative groups of students with disabilities, but also students from a range of underrepresented groups. Pleased to say there was a very strong response to the consultation process, and in addition to workshops and engagements, we also received a total of 122 submissions from a wide range of stakeholder groups. The approach of this plan will be rooted strongly in partnership approach, involving the role of the government, institutions and communities. It will focus on improving the learning experience and success of learners, and it will seek to enhance support for people who are underrepresented in the learner population in higher education. Some of the key themes in the new plan will include the continued targeting of progress of specific groups, with policy measures, funding and institutional initiatives aligned to support these groups. I'm particularly delighted to say, for the first time, the plan will address people with intellectual disabilities who have been, quite frankly, overlooked in previous plans, and I'm quite excited about that. I think it's an important move. It will also move away from just measuring access, which I think is important. It's somewhat easy to measure access, how many students got into the college, but it will actually follow their pathway through the college and their successful completion, and indeed what happens post-college as well in terms of employment. There will also be a stronger focus on the pathways between further education and training and higher education as well, to try and create that more unified and connected third-level system. And there will be an evidence-based approach to policy with a strong focus on data. I intend to bring the final plan to government in advance of publication in the coming months. I'm expecting that month to be the month of March, and we do have a budget of €5 million for 2022 to put in place a number of initiatives to drive forward this plan.
I suppose you mentioned there the time frame that you're talking about. You know, I think that there is a great urgency in this, and I think for those that are, you know, the education system, and quite rightly so, our education system has served the country extremely well over the decades. But we need to look at the, you know, those that are not benefiting from education, those that are at the margins of society, and those that are, as you said in your response, those that are not representative of it. I suppose there's a number of questions I'd like to ask. You know, and I'm glad that you're looking at the whole experience. What are the outcomes for people with disabilities in terms of further education? Also, like, you know, I suppose further education and the colleges of further education around the country, a lot of them would say that they have been the Cinderella of education for quite a long time. And there's a huge amount of work that have been done, and a very small percentage of people have gone back to further education through the colleges, and their lives have changed dramatically because of that. And I think that we as a society need to be very mindful of that, but we also need to challenge all of government, this department and other departments, to make sure that we are looking towards the people that aren't engaging with further education, how we can make it more accessible, and how that we can devise a programme and devise strategies that will ensure the best possible outcomes for people with learning difficulties, people with every kind of challenges that are on the margins of it. And I do think that you need to focus on that. In terms of the submissions, have submissions, are you still taking submissions on this, or have they closed at this point?
They have formally closed, but it's never too late to submit a good idea. So if there's any further groups or ideas that you wish to bring forward, Deputy, very happy to hear from them. Look, you're 100% right. I think you described it as those at the margins. One of the things the group driving the strategy said, and one of the things the stakeholders said, was that there needed to be additional priority groups. And this is reflecting, indeed, I was saying this in my response to Deputy Batchick's question earlier, We've actually made good progress on a number of category groups. We truthfully have. There are more students with a disability than ever before in higher education. But that masks another reality. We're not measuring all disabilities. So do we expect additional priority groups? On the outcomes piece, that's exactly it. We can't, again, this came from the feedback and the consultation, we can't just say, isn't it great a student with a disability got into college? Of course it is, but that's their right. And what we need to actually do is see what their college experience is like. And that brings you to your next point. That does require, and the plan will require, joined up thinking. The Department of Education, the transition planning between second level and third level, the Department of Employment, and what happens in terms of job opportunities after. And just on the point about further education and training being the Cinderella of education, from a capital point of view, that's absolutely has been correct. But expect again, in a new capital call, a very significant uplift in capital funding, and expect an announcement in relation to that probably later this week.
Just very briefly, if I may, Cahir, look, on the capital side of it, right, I accept that, and I look forward to that later in the week. On the revenue side of it, on the day-to-day running of it, you know, what percentage of the overall education, higher education, is going to be targeted towards people on the margins on society, you know, people that have, you know, multi-generation issues that they haven't got into third level education or don't see a prospect in third level education, and also on the disability side of it to make sure that there's outcomes for them there. And you know, I think there's an attitude that needs to change. Yeah. You know, we have a fundamental attitude that needs to change right across society. Whilst you say that the figures have increased from a very low base, yeah. And I think that, you know, we need to be able to say that everybody has a role to play in society, and by having that role, by this new department, and by making sure that this strategy is correct, I think that we can encourage more people into education and see better outcomes from them, but it needs to be very targeted at the most vulnerable and those with disabilities.
Yeah, I'm 100% up for that, and I mean, I would hope that this Oireachtas and Oireachtas committees could genuinely play a helpful and active role, indeed yourself, Deputy Moynihan, in monitoring this. This isn't a static document. In my time as being Minister, I regularly get invited to the oversight group and the likes, and there is a lot of, we'll publish the document, we'll publish the targets, but then the work actually begins. You know, our figures in relation to higher education participation are very good. They're amongst the best in Europe. But headline figures can flatter and can mask another reality. They're very good. There's been progress across all groups, but not equal progress. And that's why this is a national access and inclusion plan. And I think identifying the priority groups where we really want to make progress and providing funding. And in fairness to my colleagues in government, I am pleased that we have a €5 million fund this year to drive forward some of these initiatives, so it won't just be a plan without real funding. On the percentages of the budget, it's a very good question. I'll actually have to get you the answer, because it isn't one budget line, of course, because we provide a variety of supports for students with disability across both SOLAS, the HEA, our SUSI student grant system, our fund for students with disability. So I'll perhaps in writing get you that information, Deputy Moynihan.
Thank you, Minister.